In a world that's always changing, being a good leader is really about building a bridge over all that uncertainty. And managing risk, well, that isn't just about trying not to fall. It's about having the confidence to get to the other side. So, in this explainer, we're going to break down the core ideas of risk management, taking you from the basic principles all the way to the strategic payoff. All right, here's our game plan. We're going to kick things off by looking at the totally new era of risk we're all living in. Then, we'll get super clear on what risk actually means and see how we got to where we are today. From there, we'll check out the professional frameworks leaders are using, and finally, we'll tie it all together to see how taking the right kinds of calculated risks can lead to some real strategic wins. I mean, think about it. The scale of risk that companies are dealing with today, it's just off the charts. We're not talking about the usual market ups and downs anymore. We're talking about huge, system-wide shifts. Things like geopolitics, the explosion of AI, and of course, the ever-present reality of climate change. These aren't just little challenges. They are forces that are completely reshaping industries. So that leads to the million-dollar question, right? With all this complexity swirling around, how does any organization, big or small, actually chart a course forward? This is exactly why risk management is no longer just some back-office function. It's become an absolutely essential leadership skill. Okay, let's dive into our first section, really understanding this new era of risk. To really get a handle on this, we've got to build from the ground up. Before we can even talk about managing risk, we all need to be on the same page about what it is and what makes it different from just, plain old uncertainty. This is such a great place to start. It's simple, it's direct, and it's incredibly powerful. The key word here, measurable. See, if you can't measure something, it's just a worry, a vague fear. But the moment you can measure it, you can start to manage it. Now, what's really cool is seeing how the big official bodies build on that simple idea. You look at ISO, that's the International Organization for Standardization, or COSO, and you start to see this common thread, right? They all talk about uncertainty, events, and the impact on objectives. They're all framing risk in the context of what an organization is actually trying to accomplish. So getting those definitions down is key, but it's also super helpful to know where this whole field came from. The discipline of risk management has been on a pretty fascinating journey, and its backstory tells us a lot about why it's so important today. Believe it or not, it all started in this one very specific corner of the world, insurance. Back then, the focus was purely financial, all about protecting buildings and equipment. But over time, it dawned on people that risk wasn't just something you could buy a policy for. It was baked into every single decision. This timeline just perfectly shows that evolution, from a siloed department to what it is today, a unified strategy that touches every part of a business. Okay, so as risk management became a bigger and bigger part of strategy, it became obvious that everybody needed a common language, a shared way of doing things. That's where these standardized frameworks come into the picture. They give you the structure you need to manage risk in a systematic way. And these right here are the heavy hitters. You've got ISO 31000, which is basically the global gold standard. Then there's the COSO framework, which is huge in the US for connecting risk to the entire enterprise. And the Orange Book is a major go-to, especially for government and public sector groups in the UK. At the end of the day, these are the professional playbooks. So we've got our definitions, we've got our frameworks, but why bother? What's the actual benefit here? Let's talk about the strategic payoff and see how actively managing risk really adds value to an organization. This stock framework is just a perfect way to see the benefits. It's not just some high-level, pie-in-the-sky strategy. Look at how it flows downward. Good risk management helps you with your tactics, the big projects you decide to take on. It makes your day-to-day operations run smoother, more efficiently. And yeah, of course, it keeps you compliant with all the rules and regulations. It's creating value at every single level. And all of that leads us to our final and maybe most important idea. The ultimate goal of risk management isn't just about stopping bad things from happening. It's about building the confidence to make the good things happen. This chart just nails the whole dynamic between risk and reward. It makes total sense, right? A startup has to take on massive risks for a shot at a massive reward. Then, as a company grows up and matures, that risk profile totally changes. So the real key is making sure your appetite for risk actually matches where you are in your life cycle, so you can maximize your reward. And this is the great paradox, the real power of good risk management.
It is not about being timid or hiding in a shell. It's about being smart. The source material couldn't be clearer on this. To beat your competition, you often have to take on more risk. But, and this is the important part, it has to be calculated. You have to know the risks you're taking, inside and out, instead of just blindly stumbling into them.
So we'll leave you with this one final thought to chew on. We've talked about how risk is measurable uncertainty, and that's what all these frameworks are designed to handle. But looking ahead, maybe the biggest challenge for any leader is figuring out how to get their organization ready for the uncertainties we can't even put a number on yet. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.